Two readers enter, one reader exits.
I didn't know we were doing Battle Royale today, but apparently
Obviously,
we
this
are.
is a battle royale of fall 2024 releases. Da-da-da-da. Oh wait, what's the maximum amount of a song that you can pay before you have to pay
I
royalties?
thought you said 10 seconds.
I think it's usually 10 seconds. Da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da. And we're done.
Okay, done. Yeah. All right. Welcome everyone to Keep It Fictional, our podcast from the Port Moody Public Library. It's the two of us today. We've got Corene, the one who does things from A to B to C. And then there's me, who goes from, I don't know,
A
letters
to banana pants.
to numbers and back.
Letters to numbers to complex algorithms. And at the end of it, you're like, what was the point?
Well, there's points.
Yeah. No, it's a smooth circle of a book. Smooth circle, no point. Just vibes.
Just go in circles. Yeah, sometimes, yeah.
Just a spiral.
We are here to talk about books that we are excited to read in fall 2024, and we've sort of divided up our group this way in some, just so that you get a little bit of everything. Like we said, you get the ones who have like apparently a logical plot.
Just plot. I'm just asking for plot.
Maybe not
just
logical.
Just plot.
And then there's some that you're just like, what's happening? So we just want a little bit of everything for everybody. And next week you'll hear from Emma and Sadie, who also have that combination of random and not random. So don't know.
I don't think you can't tell her not. Virginia's ill, so expect some very exciting words to be coming out of her mouth.
Or just words.
Or just words.
If I can manage words today, I feel like I've done what I can. So yes.
It'll be like one of the stream of consciousness in your book.
Yeah. See, like I'm like just embodying my book. See? Anyway. All right. What are we doing here, Corey? What are we doing here?
So we are talking about our top 5 in no particular order, I think, mostly because I really just have scribbled them all down, and I'm going to pick at random which ones I really think I'm looking forward to. Our top 5 books of fall 2024, fall, of course, being one of the major publishing seasons. I think maybe the biggest. There's a ton of huge new books coming out in the fall. More new Louise Penny, another Suzanne Collins book.
Sally Rooney's
coming out with another one.
I think there's a new Richard Osman, I believe.
There is a new Richard Osman coming out that was on my short list.
Yeah.
Matt Haig is coming out with another book.
Yeah. Jeff Vandermeer has adding to the Southern Reach trilogy or whatever. What's her name? Leanne Moriarty.
Oh, Leanne Moriarty is coming out with another one. Essentially, if there's a big name author that you can think of, that's been a Jeopardy question, they're gonna have a new book coming out right now. And James Patterson is gonna about to have like 10 books coming out right now.
Yeah.
So
we're not gonna talk about any of those. Obviously.
You never know. You never know, Virginia.
Oh,
I'll throw you a real curveball. So yes. So we're choosing kind of 5 not those books usually, just because I think that they get enough hype, and especially when there's like a deluge of new books coming out, there are some kind of like mid-list titles that get lost in it or kind of drowned out by kind of these bigger voices who, deservedly or undeservedly, although, they wrote a book, so they all deserve their fame, are going to grab most of the sales. So we're kind of choosing between the 4 of us, let me do some quick math, 20 books that we are very much looking forward to, some of which I think are going to be in our lane. Some of them are going to be out of our lane. Some of them we're only reading because of who's translating them, but we got to support. We got to support all of his endeavors, and so we're going to read a little bit out of her lane. But I'm absolutely assured that Virginia's 5 are going to be very Virginia-y books. So I'm going to throw it over to you first. And I just can't wait. I kind of like angled myself so that I can look at you while you're reading.
Yeah, this is going to be fun. I know I can just, so that's why I when I do this, I don't look at the screen because I just, if I see your faces, then I don't think I can continue to talk. Anyway, well, I'm going to start off, as you said, with like probably the most fun in my mind and the most absurd one, I think, on my list. And it is a winner of a debut fiction prize in Germany from a Swiss playwright and a visual artist. And this is absolutely banana pants to the max. Maybe the strangest book I have read this year. And I cannot make heads or tails of it, but I love it so much. And it is banana pants as like at the sentence level, like every sentence, every image, every vignette just brings me so much joy. I had the privilege to read it ahead of time, thanks to the publisher, and I was highlighting and I stopped highlighting because I've just realized every single line I want to highlight because I want to remember. And this is like, for me, it's like the perfect coffee table book. It's one that you can just pick up the book, flip to any page, read a sentence, and just be happy. Anyway, so the book, I don't have any of the images today. Did I prepare? Not at all. The book is called Overstaying by Ariane Koch, translated by Damion Searls from German into English. And the story revolves around a young woman who is a caretaker of this giant house that her parents has left her and her siblings. And right now she's living there on her own for now. And she knows that her siblings one day is going to come and ask her for the house. But anyway, she's there, and in a small town that she has lived all her life, a town that she doesn't really care much about, and she's always say, I'm gonna leave one day," but she hasn't quite done it yet. And in fact, on that fateful day, she was actually at the train station again, looking at all the different potential destination that she could leave this town for when she meets a visitor. And it's a visitor because they look different, they don't seem to speak the language, they dress differently. You know that they're not from here. And just in passing, they met. And for whatever reason, our narrator can't stop thinking about them. Maybe because she knows that the visitor has done some leaving. They've actually left a place. So maybe they can help her figure out how to leave this town. So she couldn't stop thinking about him. And so she decided to go to the bar in town to find them because that's where everybody goes. And they sort of share this look because they don't speak the same language, maybe, or do they? I don't know. The visitor sort of follows her home, or she offers him a place to stay. Again, I don't really know. And she just figured, well, I have 10 rooms in the house. I only use 9 of them. So there's one that is free. And in this room, there is where she keeps all her vacuum cleaners. Sorry, Courtney. Um, Vacuum cleaners, and she thought, well, like he can stay there. And it seems like the vacuum cleaners are pretty happy to share the room with him. At night, the first night, she found all the nozzles. They were like nuzzling up to the visitor, and they were just getting along fine. So that's good. And of course, her life starts to change. She became the talk of the town because she has taken in a visitor. The kids will like purposely like throw things into her yard and so that they can have an excuse to come and get it so that they can look at the visitor. And the visitor seems quite helpful, especially with the housework, all the housework that needs to be done. And like he's very tall, so it's great. But soon things start to change a little bit. Like, she's starting to lose sleep because the visitor howls at night, or sometimes he talks really loud on the phone. The visitor hair keeps growing and growing and growing, and they won't take a hint. She keeps saying, "Oh, I know a place you can buy a hairbrush," and they just won't do it. And she's also convinced that they come in at night to eat her socks. So things are not going well. Who is this visitor? What is this visitor? I don't know. I read the book. I did read the book. Do I know who or what this is? I had no idea. Is it even human? I don't know. Does it matter? Not at all. Do I know what the story really is about? No, not at all, but not one bit. But it is so funny. Every single little image, every single thing that she has to do, like it just get progressively like worse. When she's have to deal with this visitor who just won't leave. It's funny, it's dark, it's confusing. It's so great. And I love a book where there's just so many ways to read the book. There's so many ways to interpret it. And I feel like this is a book like definitely just made for me. So I highly recommend this totally banana pants book. It's called Overstaying by Ariane, Koch, translated by Damion Searls. And let me just sneak in another book here because that's our tradition here. Damion Searls, the translator, also has a book coming out this fall. It's called The Philosophy of Translation. Of course, this sounds like a book that is for anybody who's interested in translation and what translators do. And of course, translation is not just substituting a word in one language with an equivalent in another language. It is so much more than that. It's about creating, you're really creating a new work, a new book. Damion Searls is a prolific translator of more than 60 books in 4 different languages, in German, in Norwegian, in French, in Dutch. Of course, he's also the translator of last year's Nobel Prize winner, Jon Fosse. And anyone who have read Fosse's Subtology, you know that you can't just substitute word by word, to capture Fosse's writing, to capture the mood, to capture his style. You have to be so much more than that. So I think this is going to be a fascinating read for anyone who loves languages, anyone who loves books. And of course, it's been endorsed by many other translators, including Korean's man Anton Her. So yeah, so that again, if you're interested in translation, I would also highly recommend that. All right, Miss Corene,
I
what have
hate
you
it.
got?
I hate it. All right, I have a
Yeah.
book that I think is going to make sense. It has a plot and characters, and in many ways is grounded and rooted in real experience. So I wanted to highlight the new book coming out by Katherena Vermette called The Real Ones. So you might have heard of a pretendian, and I don't know that I've ever actually said that word out loud, so I apologize if I'm mispronouncing it. It's a portmanteau of pretend, Indian, pretendian. And I feel like we have seen a lot of examples of this in the news recently. For example, in the literary world, Joseph Boyden, there's been Michelle Latimer, and quite recently, Buffy St. Marie. So this is someone who claims indigenous ancestry, indigenous culture, but this does not hold up under scrutiny. And so often these people are getting benefits or some sort of cachet jobs, scholarships for this pretense for various reasons. And so this particular book by Katherena Vermette, who you have probably heard of as the author of The Break, The Strangers, The Circle. She wrote North End Love Song, which won the Governor General's Literary Award for Poetry. The Break was the finalist for the Writers Trust Award and the Governor General's Literary Award for Fiction. It was a Canada Reads book. We have it here as one of our book club books. Vermette is a Métis writer from Winnipeg. Her writing is always very incisive and heartbreaking in every way. And I'm really interested to see her take on this particular subject. So the real one is following 2 mischief sisters, Ivy and June. And they're kind of living their own lives when their estranged mother, who is very white, gets called out as a pretendian. I'm really struggling. Pretendian. So their mother, who they have not spoken to in years, has been going by the name Raven Bearclaw and has actually been gaining some success and traction for her art that draws on the indigenous style. So her mother has been kind of cashing in on this, and is now part of a media maelstrom. However, the sisters can't escape being a part of this. Then they start investigating the story and the sisters whose childhood trauma is kind of brought up and resurfaced by all of this attention. And whether they want to or not, they are kind of pulled into their mother's world and web of lies. And according to the CBC article, the painful past resurfaces. So I am very interested in kind of reading this book, kind of, I think we've all read a lot of news stories about this and like the impact that it can have when one family member chooses to do this. I'm really interested in looking at this from an Indigenous perspective within fiction. I like that it's a family story. And I'm really, really interested to see what kind of Katherena Vermette does with it. This book is coming out on September 3rd, so I have it pre-ordered. So hopefully I will get that right away and report back and be able to give a little bit more detail than what I have read in the CBC article. But when you see a book coming out by an author that just like hits it out of the park, even if it's not your thing, like you're like, this is really good, and I can appreciate that this is really good. And this is an author who I think I really admire their writing. I really admire their style. And then this is a subject that I'm just it's so fascinating. I don't particularly understand it. And so I'm kind of wanting to delve a little bit deeper. I think all of us were really shocked by the alleged allegations about Buffy St. Marie and kind of like the impact that that has like on her birth family, on the community, on Indigenous youth, on people that kind of held them up as a role model. So I think it'll be a really fascinating and timely read. There we go.
All right, so I guess we're swinging to back to the other side. I promise there are some books on my list that make sense. I promise, but not this one, not this next one. So when I talk about my first book, it's already out in the UK because they get books first sometimes. And one of the I think papers said that it seems like the story takes place half in the real world and half in a Leonora Carrington painting. And that brings me to my second book. In addition to Clarice Lispector, last year I also got really obsessed with Leonora Carrington. I don't really know why, but I just did. Sometimes some authors you just came across and you're like, I need to know everything about them. And I know I'm obsessed with them when I'm willing to go read nonfiction about them. So Leonora Carrington is one of them. She may be more well known as a surrealist painter, but she is also a writer, and the publisher New York Review of Books have been releasing her books in the past few years. I read The Hearing Trumpet first and really, really loved that book so much. And that sort of made me read everything like that is available about her so far. That was a book about a woman who has trouble hearing, and her family decided to put her into a OH home that is run by, as they say, a self-improvement cult. So it was really, really fun book. And then I also read Down Below, which is a memoir of her life in an institution when she has a breakdown after her husband was captured by the Nazis and put in the concentration camp. So she has a hard life. And then, of course, her complete short stories collections, which I also read, published by Dorothy Project, which is also the same people that publish Overstaying. So, yeah, a novel that I'm really, really, really like in love with. I again don't really know why, but her second novel will be published this fall. It originally published in the 70s and has been out of print, but the same publisher, New York Review of Books, is going to publish that. So I'm really, really excited about that. I'm just going to read the blurb word by word from the publisher because it's not something I can paraphrase, I don't think, because I have no idea what's happening, which is most of my books anyway. So it said, the stone door is an omen, an incantation, an adventure story rolled into one. Built in layers like a puzzle box, it is the tale of two people, of love and the zodiac and the Kabbalah, of Transylvania and Mesopotamia converging at the Caucasus, of a mad Hungarian game named Bolas Hillary and a woman's discovery of an initiatory code that leads to a cyclopean obstacle to love, self-awareness, and to the great stone door of Cascade and beyond. Yeah, got all that. Yeah, I have no idea what's happening, but that's okay because I read anything that Leonora Carrington write. And I even try to, because it's a book that has been out of print, but like I've even tried to look up like, what the book is about. And I read a bunch of things. I have no idea. I feel like it would be as strange as sort of staring at one of her paintings. I think there's going to be so many things to look at and so many things to enjoy. So I am very excited about the book. I know this, yeah, but it's one of those authors that I cannot wait to read everything about them. So yeah, um, that's my second pick. And like I said, there are some books that are coming that actually has a plot, but not that one probably.
Every word that you said in that description was worse than the last.
I know because I started reading, I'm like, this sounds amazing. Well, to me, it sounds amazing, but I get
It's
it. I get it.
so this is a really weird connection is that you started talking about Leonora Carrington, and my dad is a huge music fan, and we had hundreds and hundreds of CDs. And one of my favorite one is this Welsh artist, Catel Keening, and she wrote a song called Leonore. And I didn't know it at the time. I love this album. I think she's an amazing singer. She only came out with a couple of things to kind of like very little acclaim, despite the fact that I think she deserves all of it. On her album Jet from 1997. And you started talking about Leonora Carrington, and I was like, no, I know all this. I know all this. I know all the story of her and her many husbands and like all of this stuff. And I was like, why on earth do I know about Leonora Carrington? I've never heard of her. And it's because that song is about her. And so every single time that you mention her, I get this song in my head for just like days and days and days. Yeah, so I'm a big fan of hers. Without I love her art. I think her art is incredible, but it's always that song that kind of hits me because as soon as you started talking about it, I was like, this is really weird. Like I have no idea who this person is. I've never met this artist before, and yet I know every single biographical detail that you are mentioning. So there you go. Meant to be. Meant to be. All right. Okay, my next book. I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to talk about it. Okay. I will read anything. I don't mind a fantasy. I don't it's not it's not my it's like a straight up epic fantasy is not my favorite thing to read. I will be perfectly honest. I think that there are too many names going on and there could be some editing. Always. Sorry, Patrick Rothfuss. Like you know this in your heart. You know this in your heart. You can protest all you want, Virginia. He knows it's true. And so the reason why I'm talking about this book, as alluded to, is that it is translated by Anton Her. And I will, without fail, pick up and purchase every single book that he translates, including his own book that he wrote that is on a subject matter that I truly loathe. And I'm going to read this book faithfully, and I am going to buy it. I've already pre-ordered it. It is an epic fantasy, a bestseller in Korea by Sung-il Kim. And the description of it makes me extremely exhausted. Um, Wait, how many pages is this? It's 368. That's fine. That's okay. That's cool. That's cool. Okay. Let's just get into it because honestly, the words that I say could be any words because I feel like the description for most epic fantasies, and this is just my bias, they all kind of feel the same until you get to the writing of it. And you're like, oh, that's what take you're doing with this trope. Um, all right, here we go. Okay, so it's an empire run on necromancy. Again, one of my least favorite subjects. They're dead. Just let them sleep. Oh, I hate this. Okay, so dead sorcerers are the lifeblood of this stupid empire. Their corpses are wrapped in chains and drained of magic to feed the unquenchable hunger for imperial conquest. So even in your death, you're serving the empire and the capitalist thing. Okay, this sucks and I hate it. This sucks and I hate it already. I hate the empire. Yeah, I hate the Empire. So they're using dead corpses to kind of fuel what I understand from some of them as like mechs to take over empires with this dead wizard juice. And then there's like 3 people who are going to fight the Empire because that's what you do, and you only need 3 of them. But then there's also like this 4th guy that's in this description that I'm not sure what he's doing. Okay, so there's a girl, Ariane, who's been born with magic and is like, oh, butts. One of these days, I'm going to end up a battery for the kingdom. But then a long dead sorcerer starts talking inside of her head, and she thinks, well, I don't want to be a battery forever. So there might be a different fate for her. And then there's a 7-eyed dragon that is also being used for its juices. It used to be the land's imperial sacred guardian, but now it's just juice. And there's Lauren, who is a widowed swordswoman who kneels before the dragon in Decade, and she's like, "Hey, dragon, if you could give me a sweet dragon fang sword, I can do something with that." I assume it's to chop people. And then in the heart of the imperial capital, Kane is known as a man who gets things done. And his best friend, his mentor, is murdered. So he's going to find those who are responsible, even if it means starting a war. Okay. So, bad empire, dragons, cool, wizard batteries. Great. It is step into a world of necromancy, murder, and twisted magic. A world needs a hero. Cool. It's been blurbed by like Max Gladstone, KS Vasiloso. It's been getting like really good reviews. Like, all right, cool. I'll give it a try. I've done a terrible job book talking that one.
It's okay, you've convinced me. Just like your last nanotechnology book by Anton Her. Like, I mean,
Oh, it's just not me. And again, like I don't mind a fantasy book once I'm in it, but like reading the blurbs, it's like na 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 sword, na 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 evil empire, na 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 dragon, and I'm like, all right, oh, what are you bringing to the table? What are you bringing to the table here? And I don't know. I don't know until I open it. So I'll do that. All 368 pages of it.
you can do it. You do anything for Anton Her. It's fine.
Truly, I will. Truly, I
Right?
will.
It's fine. All right. As I promised, my books have plot. The next ones do have plot. The last 2 maybe, but these 2. So I'm gonna do a 2-for-1 because they are like books that I feel like they are very similar in some ways, and I'm very excited to read both of them. It's fall, which means that I think for some people that's the time when they may pick up a horror. Because of the season. Horror for me, of course, is like all throughout the year, but I feel like I haven't read many for a while. It's weird. Anyway, but there's these 2 coming out that I'm very, very excited about. And they're both kind of haunted houses story. The first one is Model Home by Rivers Solomon. Rivers Solomon is an author that is sort of a must read for me. It doesn't matter what they write, pretty much. And this one is about the Maxwell siblings, Asri, Eve, and Emmanuel. All 3 of them grew up in Oak Creek Estates, a gated community for the rich people outside Dallas. But all of them have left. The first chance they can get, they got out because this is not a place where they want to stay. They were the only Black family there. And growing up, strange things have happened, bad things, scary things that have always, always happened to their house. But for whatever reason, their parents, especially their mother, just refused to leave. But no, thank you. They got out the first chance they get. But now they have to go back because their parents have died and nobody knows how and why. So it's a very classic kind of setup, going back to the house that you grew up in and something bad happens there. But it's River Solomon, which I know that it is not going to be one of those run-of-the-mill haunted house story. They are absolutely going to turn this motif upside down and inside out. It's a story about family secrets, about racism, about segregation, and as the blurb said, a queer family battling for their right to live, to grieve, to heal amid the terrors of contemporary American life. So I'm very, very much looking forward to anything written by them, but really excited about this haunted house story. Maybe they'll get me back into horror a little bit. The second one that is in a very similar kind of vein is called We Came to Welcome You by Vincent Tirado. Another haunted house, another gated community story, actually. It's a story about So, and So's life is not going very well because she's right now on probation at her university job because she's accused of plagiarism. And also, she has to go and visit her homophobic father, which is never fun. But on the other hand, her wife Alice is quite happy because they finally managed to buy a house in this beautiful community called the Mainless Grove. So is not so convinced that this is the dream home that they wanted because the neighbors are weird. And while Alice thinks that they are being really friendly, So thinks that they are just downright aggressive, especially that homeowners association with their stupid slogan, like invest in neighborly spirit. Like So wants nothing to do with it. And Alice just keeps telling So just be more neighborly, like they say. And then weird things, of course, start happening inside the house. Doors start disappearing, stairs disappeared, roots start growing inside. But her wife is, Alice is worried about So, worried about her health. But like, how is she not seeing all of this? There's something really wrong here. Is she the only one who could see this? So, a story about assimilation to survive, a story about what is it? Is it still survival if you are no longer yourself? So I think both of these are going to be really, really fun. And so yeah, looking forward to two, maybe like I think Vincent Tirado wrote a YA book. I can't remember the name. Burn down something something. Yeah, that was winning awards. So I think both of them would be great. I've never read them before, but I'm really excited for some different takes on the good old haunted house story. So see a plot in those two.
Plot as metaphor, but I'll allow it. My next pick is definitely a little bit more up my lane. And it's because it's Murder She Wrote meets Buffy the Vampire Slayer. So this is about someone who is kind of one, maybe in one of those like procedural cozy murder mysteries, and kind of takes a look around and says, "Goodness, I have seen a lot of dead bodies." So this is about a librarian. So of course it's taking place in a library, one of my favorite tropes, about Sherry Pink Whistle, who just keeps stumbling across dead bodies and solving their murders. But at a certain point, she starts to look through her spreadsheets and realize that is an improbable amount of murders. Maybe a concerning amount of murders. But none of her neighbors seem really concerned that, that there is weekly someone passing away in a tragic way and then someone having to solve it. And Sherry begins to suspect that perhaps the cause of this is something unnatural. Now, when someone that is close to Sherry ends up dead, she and her cat, Lord Thomas Crowell, who she thinks perhaps. Hold on. Let me reread this sentence again. When someone close to Sherry ends up dead and her cat becomes possessed by what seems to be an ancient demon, nope, that was right the first time. Sherry begins to think that she is going to need to become an exorcist as well as an amateur sleuth. Oh boy. So, with the help of the town's new priest and a bunch of new friends who dub themselves the Demon Hunting Society, Sherry is going to have to solve this murder in addition to clearing her town of a demon. So this is going to be like a little supernaturally murder mystery. It sounds very silly, and that's okay. Honestly, it was the title that really got me. It's called the Village Library Demon Hunting Society by C.M. Waggoner. It looks very cute. And again, I think there was a book that maybe you had talked about, Virginia, about the woman living on this who has so many murders around her that she eventually moves to an abandoned space station or something like that. And then someone dies at the space station and she's like really bummed about that. It's really kind of like along those ends of like one day Jessica Fletcher wakes up and says, my God, every city that I visit, someone close to me is murdered. And I just wish that people had a little bit more self-awareness of that because, like, honestly, if you were Jessica Fletcher, like, she can't even stay home because in Cabot Cove, like if she stays there, someone gets dead too. So, like, you really have nowhere to hide, even in the middle of the ocean on a cruise. There's always murderers lingering around. And this book seeks to address this by saying that the answer was probably demons. Sure. Sure.
Oh, did I stop listening after you said the word spreadsheet? Yes, I did. You're saying a lot of words today. Necromancy, spreadsheet, and then you said cats. What's happening? What's happening? Yeah. All right. Okay. My next book is that's not probably is not really quite my type of book, but we'll see what happens. It's called Question Number 7. Question 7. Wednesday, June 17, 1881. A train had to leave station A at 3 a.m. in order to reach station B at 11 p.m. Just as the train was about to depart, however, an order came from that the train had to reach station B by 7 p.m. Who loves longer, a man or a woman? This is Chekhov's question posed by a mad mathematician, a parody, of course, of the kind of word problems that you might get in math class. And question 7 is also the name of Richard Flanagan's new book. As you all know, I have a very strong preference for fiction, but occasionally something will make me read a nonfiction book. One of my favorite books this year so far, I don't know if it's going to make it to the top 5, so don't have to take notes yet, but it is Knife by Salman Rushdie. I listened to the audiobook read by Rushdie himself, and I cried buckets while driving. Not advisable, but I wasn't prepared to get so emotional about it. But just listening to him talk about his experience on stage that day, being just somebody coming up and just start stabbing him, like yeah, it was very hard to read. But Salman Rushdie is also quite funny if you read his book. So it was a weird combination, just crying, you're laughing at the same time. But yeah, so I think this next book is going to be very similar in this way, maybe minus the funny, I think. It's Richard Flanagan is a author from Tasmania in Australia. And I think this is supposed to be a book that is quite hard to classify. It's sort of a memoir, but also a history book, but also autofiction. A few years ago, I came across this novel, The Living Sea of Waking Dreams, about a woman who was dealing with her mother who is sick in a hospital, and her fingers start disappearing. And I think when we're talking about books that we like, I think one of the things I kind of failed to mention was that I love books that has a strange premise, that you get attracted to it, and then you realize that it hits you with this something else, and you're not expecting, because you're just like, oh, this premise sounds interesting, but like it ends up being something quite different. And of course that book very much about grief, about letting go. And I remember being sort of like mesmerized, and by all, like, how good the sentences were. That was sort of the first time I kind of noticed a book that has such good sentences. And ashamed to say that that's the only book I have read so far by Flanagan, but I'm going to correct that because I will be reading this question 7 book. Chekhov, I think he took the question from Chekhov, because Chekhov also believes that literature is not to provide answers, but to ask the necessary questions. And I think question 7 is Flanagan's attempt to ask those necessary questions. I started reading the book. The book begins with him visiting Japan, and he was in the Ohama coal mine. his father was a prisoner of war that was captured by the Japanese, sent to work then on the Death Railway, and then became a slave laborer at the coal mine. And so he went to Japan to visit the coal mine, and he was shown the museum. He was shown like all the things that are there, but the people there seems to never have heard of slave laborers. And then for whatever reason, the media got hold of his visit, so some of the media was there. And then he met a man named Mr. Sato, and Mr. Sato was actually one of the guards that worked at the coal mine before, the guard whose job is probably to beat his father regularly. And so he wasn't sure what to do with Mr. Sato. They took this awkward photo together, and Flanagan started asking himself, well, what am I doing here? Like what do I hope to accomplish by coming to Japan? He doesn't really know. His father did come back. He didn't die during the war because they dropped a bomb in Hiroshima. And so with that, he tries to trace a path. Is there a path that he could kind of find out? So we move from his visit to Japan to stories by H.G. Wells, and his affair with Rebecca West. And then we have Leo Szilard, who has been inspired by Wells' novel to talk about nuclear physics. And then it moves to his one day in his life when he wasn't sure he was going to live or not. And then it talks about the colonization and the near genocide of the Tasmanian indigenous population. So it went sort of from, like I said, from a memoir, a personal story, to history. And it's just him trying to figure out, is there answers to all the questions that he has, and there isn't. I think he's very much, he understands right from the start that there is no answer, there is no, like this equals that, like there's nothing you could kind of figure out. And it's a book about stories about memory, and you can just feel the humility that he has in writing this book, that like he knows that there's that he can possibly figure out like the cause and effect and all that stuff, but it's just something that he just needs to write out. And it's a love note to his parents, to his island home, to a world that has vanished, and to stories, to stories that we invent to talk about ourselves. So I was halfway through the book, and I think it's fascinating. It's fascinating to read this really, really personal but also very complex story. Yeah, so occasionally I do will get into these nonfiction, and I think this will be one that I think will stay with me for quite a while. It is one of those books where I know that it's like the Salman Rushdie book. I had to like sort of stop after reading a little bit, because I'm like, I can't. I have to put it down and just collect myself, and then like kind of go back in. So yeah, I'm looking forward to finishing this book up. So that's Question 7 by Richard Flanagan.
Very interesting. Very, very interesting. And I don't often say that when we're doing this episode. Actually, that. I'm saying it very, very, very quietly in the hopes that maybe you'll edit it out, and then I won't have to like hew to that promise. But honestly, that I do like a good memoir. I do like a good like storyteller memoir, especially because I think that they're able to tell it in such a way that makes it really compelling but interesting. All right. Again, looking through my list, I think there's only one book that really, well, what are we at? We're at book number 4, Chamonix. Um, there's only really one-ish book on this list that I really, 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 really is me. The rest of these are books that I am somewhat reading reluctantly despite myself, even though I think I will probably really enjoy them. Because the next book is an international bestseller from the New York Times, notable author of The Old Woman with the Knife. And this has been described by a bracingly original story of family, marriage, and the cultural expectation of motherhood. And this is by South Korean author Byeong-mo. And this is gonna be uncomfortable. You know, when you sometimes read a blurb of something, you're like, oh, I understand the vibe that this is going to be intensely. And this one seems like a little like dystopian, creepy vibes, maybe murdery around the corner. So I'm not quite sure. I know it's supposed to be a thriller, but also a beautiful story about poor women whose lives intersect in dramatic and unexpected ways. So we'll see. It is about Yujin, who moves in with her husband and daughter into a kind of special apartment complex on the outskirts of Seoul. So it's called the Dream Future Pilot Communal Apartments. And so it is a government initiative designed to boost the national birth rate. So, like in many countries, the birth rate is falling in South Korea for various reasons. And so, to answer this, in this book, they have created these kind of like communal apartment complexes that you get to live in, provided that you have at least two more children over the next 10 years. But when Yujin arrives, she kind of feels uneasy about what is described as the community spirit thrust upon her. There is community childcare that begins, so that she is sharing this kind of parenthood with all the other families there. And a lot of the other parents show their true colors that deeply contrast with hers. It it takes the lives of four of these women in the apartments, all with different aspirations, all with different goals, and all with different beliefs, especially surrounding motherhood and the future of their children. So the question that they kind of ask is, will they find a way to live peacefully, or are the cultural expectations around parenthood stacked against them from the start? So this has been described as a trenchant, which is a word that I love, a trenchant social novel that incisively illuminates the unspoken imbalance of a woman's parenting labor, challenging the age-old assumption that it takes a village to raise a child. Um, yeah, I'm very interested in this particular novel, because it's kind of taking a possible future. I know that a lot of countries are concerned about kind of falling birth rates and kind of putting that burden on women to do something about it. And so it is entirely possible that some sort of experiment like this, some sort of communal apartments could be the future. And I'm very, very interested in kind of the social commentary that the author is going to use this for. Talking about motherhood specifically in South Korea, talking about the expectations, talking about that idea of like communal raising of children when you do have such different and varied expectations of what that looks like. And so I'm kind of interested in it, even though I think it's going to be a bummer and I think someone's going to die. Like, I don't know. I just get that vibe. Maybe they don't. Maybe they all come together and it's all like kumbaya and flowers and hair, but I really don't think it's going to be that. So this is, again, Apartment Women by Gu Byung-mo, translated by Chi Young Kim. Coming out again September 3rd. Big day. I should actually see if I could take that day off as a vacation day. Just go to the bookstore instead. Oh, it's a Tuesday. Never mind. All right, Virginia, this is this your last book?
It is, yeah. But I was gonna
Last
say before
call.
we do that, there are books that, like I know you have one more. So are there books you want to give a shout out to before we go into our last book? Um,
Oh,
the one that you mentioned earlier, you know how like a couple episodes ago, Emma and I read Dragon Palace and we were like, oh, Dragon
yeah.
Palace, right? So Hiromi Kawakami, I feel really bad about it. Like they have a new book coming out, called Under the, oh no, what is it called? Under the Eye of the Big Bird. And when you were talking about that book earlier, it's sort of again set in the future where they make people out of different animal species.
No.
Yeah, I read the first. I read the first interconnected stories. I read the first one, and so like it's like you don't find out what animal you are until you die, basically, or like people that find out who you are. Yeah, and then they were all raised by these mothers. Yeah, so yeah, I, I'm gonna read it because I feel bad. I feel bad. So I'm gonna give this offer another try and see how that goes.
That's
But
kind of you. Sorry. Jane Urquhart has a new book coming out.
oh,
In
Jane
winter, I get up
Heard.
at night. Right. I'm really excited about that. Oh, it's coming out August 27th, so it narrowly missed the deadline of this podcast.
That's
But I'm
so
going to mention it anyways.
yeah, it's weird because like that's my first Canadian novel in high school. And I don't remember and I think I might have seen her at the Writer Festival also. Like, yeah,
Oh,
it was
nice.
very weird. Like, and I don't know. Yeah. Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, I'm very excited about that. Marigold Mind Laundry is coming out. I've got that one on reserve. Alan Bradley has another one coming out, which I thought was really interesting because I mean, he's never going to listen to this, so it's fine. I felt like the last couple of books were truly not very good. So I am curious to see whether he can kind of like pick it up a little bit or not. Grady Hendrix has Witchcraft
Yes.
for Wayward Girls. Yeah. Yeah. What about you? I'm sure you have a very long list that you prepared in advance. So let me just turn off my microphone and relax.
No, I want to ask you how, because for me, when you were talking about Alan Bradley, right? So for me, when an author, I don't know, like if I read one book, like that is not good, they're dead to me very quickly. I feel really bad for saying, but like, yeah, I can. So, how many books do you allow them? Because in some of them, I'm just like, no, nope, never reading you again. So I'm curious. That's my existential question for you today.
That's really hard because I feel like I give them infinite choices and I give infinite chances and I shouldn't. And I know I shouldn't because what was the one it was Riley the one that Cindy and I both read.
I'm
I was
just
like
saying, girl.
Riley Sager and I was like this is the stupidest thing I've ever read. And my goodness if I didn't put their next book on hold as if it had never happened. And I'm like, well, I'm going to give Alan Bradley another chance as well. It comes out and I'm going to read it. I'm not, who knows? I'm not going to enjoy it. I'm not going to enjoy it. And yet I will read it. So that's sad. I feel like once someone has won my loyalty, it's really hard to lose it. In the same way that I really am the walking sunken cost fallacy. And that once I've invested enough like time and energy at the beginning, or if I've paid for a meal that I'm not enjoying, I will do it until the bitter, bitter end because I've already put so much time and effort into it.
Right? I feel, yeah, no, I know I shouldn't, right? And sometimes I'm just like, yeah, there's certain authors, like the one that you mentioned earlier. I read all their books, like, and I love them. Well, and then just one. It just takes one sentence. And I'm like, no, I think I am done. So yeah.
But I think you're right. Like, as you say, there are like infinite books out there that you shouldn't, and I know this in my heart, like you shouldn't be wasting time on things that you don't enjoy. And yet, again, I'm I keep going back to them, and I don't think that that's healthy. I think that says something that's like innately broken within me. Whereas you're right, like if a musician starts, has really good albums, and then is it the Lou Reed one where he was just like, I have a contractual obligation to make another album, so I'm just going to clang two pots together and put it on a CD. Like I would still buy that because once my loyalty is won, it's really hard to shake it.
Well, I think the writers will appreciate you as a reader much more than me because They always kind of like have to prove themselves. Yeah, there are very few that I would give like, I would tolerate. But yeah, there's some that just
I mean, they can't all be winners, but there are some authors who it's like quality, 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 and then there is something that happens, and you're like, oh boy, like this is not. It's like it's a completely different book, completely different author, and I guess it's just like holding on hope that maybe one day he'll get back.
it's different if I read like a book that like a later, because you know how sometimes you discover them because of the latest book that they read, right? And then like when you go back to their backlist, and sometimes like, oh yeah, well, this is not quite the same. Like I'm okay with that more because then you're like, okay, well, like they're growing as a writer, right? Like you see them develop. But yeah, like if it's like you start from the beginning and then you're like, wait, what happened here? So yeah. Anyway, anyway. So yeah, so I think weirdly, I think maybe next week you'll hear about two other books that I really, really want to talk about, but I'm gonna give it to the other two people to talk about if they're going to talk about it. I think one of them for sure. So yeah. But I think when we were mentioning big books that come out earlier, Murakami has a new book coming out after 6 years. That would be huge. The City and Its Certain Uncertain Walls. I have never read. I was going to talk about it today, but then I don't want to know what the book is about because I feel like his books is one of those that like you have to go in without knowing anything. I started reading a little bit. I'm like, no, 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 I don't want to know. I don't want to know. I'm just gonna go and enjoy. So yeah, so that would be one that would be exciting. And I've never read a Murakami at the time of release. So this would be interesting. Yeah, and then Mariana Enrique, thank goodness, she's going back to short story because I did not like her. Okay, so this is one offer that I'm willing to give a pass because I did not like her novel. But her short stories are great. I think, I hope, hope are great. So I'm looking forward to that. Sunny Place for Shady People. And Pashamala, which I'm saving for our Canadian episode. He has a new book coming out, and also John Elizabeth Stinson. That's the author of My Volcano, which is the Banana Pants book that I talk about on the Banana Pants episode. Has a new short story collection coming out called Bad Houses. So I'm looking forward to that. Yeah. All right. Are we ready for the last bit?
So ready because this book is absolutely up my alley, and I'm going to enjoy it.
Okay. So do you want to go first? No? Okay. All right. All right. So well, I said I had the most Banana Pants book, but like I'm just gonna bookend with Banana Pants because that's what that's what I do. This is also a book that I have, again, lucky to be able to read it already. And I know it is Banana Pants. I know I love it like so much. It is actually a little bit of a cheat because it's a book that came out in the 70s. But it's coming out in English for the first time this October from one of my favorite small presses and other stories, of course. I'll read anything that they publish. This is a Uruguayan writer, but probably more known in Argentina because the weird thing is that apparently, according to the notes in the beginning, that when the publisher moved to Argentina, they for whatever reason decide to take boxes of this book that they have published to Argentina. And so it's a book that is really hard to find apparently, especially because the author is also likes to keep a low profile. But we have a chance to read it now, again, all thanks to like all these like publishers that are translating books and all the translators. So again, super thankful for them. Um, it's the first time I read this author, but it's not the first time the author has been translated into English. But it's a very influential author for all the writers that I really, really love. I was reading a book by Alejandro Zambra called Not to Read, his sort of like little like essays about literature and things like that. And he talks about this author being more important than Gabriel Garcia Marquez, and then Alvaro Enrique, the author of Sudden Death that I talk about on the podcast, and also this year's You Dream of Empires, and another amazing, amazing book, said that we are all his children. We referring to him himself and other writers. So as a somebody who really inspired a lot of Latin American writers, and I always find that when we learn about these authors that we have never heard of. I always feel a little sad that, like, there's just such a big wide world out there that we don't have access to yet. And then, there's all these like great writers out there that we've never heard of, like here in North America. So I'm again so thankful that we have a chance to read them. So this is Mario Levrero, and this is a short story collection, and his debut short story collection coming out this October is called The Thinking-About-Gladys Machine, and it's translated by Annie McDermott and Kit Schluter. It's a book, a short story, microfiction to sort of longer stories, and I think the shorter stories, the shorter ones are probably some of my favorites. Levrero said that like the only thing that matters in literature is writing with as much freedom as you possibly can, and I think he certainly demonstrated that in these stories. Um, his I pick it up because of the title, Thinking About Gladys Machine. Like, who doesn't want to know what a Thinking About Gladys Machine does? Well, you know how sometimes when you have a title story in a short story collection, you're just waiting for that story to come up in the book. Well, this is the first story in the collection. So it's about a narrator and his sort of bedtime ritual. Just before he go to bed, he has certain things that he has to do. He has to close all the windows. He has to make sure that the three knobs on the stove are turned to zero. He has to make sure his refrigerator is set to light refrigeration. He has to make sure that his clock is synchronized with his wristwatch, and that he has to make sure the Thinking About Gladys machine is plugged in and purring away softly as usual. And then he goes to sleep. And then he wakes up in the morning and he hears a noise. Oh no, what is that noise? The house is falling down. The end is near. And that's the end of the story. Did we ever find out what the Thinking About Gladys machine is? No, we did not. But does it matter? No, it doesn't. That's what I find it so much fun, because it's just like his stories are kind of like that. It builds up and builds up, and then at the end you're like, wait, what? Like, what just happens? And then you don't really find out, I think, sometimes about what like sort of the story or the characters are looking for in the middle. There's another longer one called The Basement, about this boy who lives in a house. It's sort of like a spoke, like a wheel and a spoke. So you got like the middle is the living room, and then there's all these hallway. And each of the hallways are lined with all the rooms, and he goes around, and it's such a big house that he has trouble like keeping track. And one day he came across a room that has a padlock on them, and he wanted to know like what the room is. So he went back to the living room to ask his parents, well, I find a room that is locked. And they're like, yeah, I'm surprised you never came across that room, it's always been there. And they're like, wait, but like I have never, this is the first time, why is it locked? And then, oh, because we don't want people to go in there. Well, why do you not want people to go in there? Oh, because it's that's it goes to the basement. Well, what's in the basement? Well, we don't talk about it. And then they start talking about like adult stuff. So it got so boring that he sort of forgot about it. But like the next day he woke up, I'm like, no, I need to find out what's in the basement. And so that leads him to this long journey, that encounters so many strange things, until finally he finds the key to get into the basement. And do we know what's in the basement? No, you don't. So and then there's a stories about a house that has like spiders who only stay in one room. There's like tiny little women that came out from taps when you turn on the tap. There's one about a lighter that won't work, and when the person tried to take it apart, there's another lighter that springs out. It gets a little bigger, and it gets bigger and bigger until it fills up the whole room. And then like the person is like try to crawl around this lighter, and then he sees a light, and he's trying to figure out like, well, where does this go? And so he tried to move towards the light. There's one about a girl who knock on the door one day, and a girl that shows up at the door and say, oh, I'm here to demonstrate, I'm doing home demonstration. And they're like, okay. And so like she takes out this green liquid, and she start like cleaning. So it's like, I guess it's a cleaning liquid, she's demonstrating it. But the person in the house was having a hard time focusing, because after the girl has like there's this bunch of like people coming in. First of all, there was like like a clown doing like juggling, and then there was like a lion tamer, and there was a lion that looks really like hungry, and then there was like acrobats doing like acrobatic stuff, and just like trick after trick. And then like the person was like, okay, you know what, I'm not gonna buy anything. I don't really need this liquid, that's fine, please go take your circus with you. And she's like, what circus? That's they're not with me. So she just left. Yeah, so just stories that are just like weird and strange, and I love them so much. Each story weirder than the next. And I'm so excited to read his other books. I bought one of them already. Is this giant novel? So yeah, I'm really excited to get to know more authors. And again, thanks to like some of the publishers like Another Stories to bring that. And just to a side promo, the translator Kit Schluter has a book out this year, another short story collection called Cartoons. And having read that already, and then now reading this collection, I can see why he would translate this. I think Corene talked about before how very often translators bring works that they love to publishers and say, "Oh, could you I think we should publish this, we should translate this." And I can see why Kishula will be involved in this project because I think his stories are very similar in some ways. So give you like banana pants short stories, give you like stories that just kind of like takes you on a journey and you have like no idea what's going to happen. I think you should check out both Mario Levrero's story, The Thinking-About-Gladys Machine, and also Kids Scribble cartoons. So, all right, Miss Corene, your last book, very
We
last book.
survived. We
We
survived.
survived. Yes.
I survived. I survived. My
Yeah.
my last book in this is actually a keep it fictional tradition for the fall most anticipated reads. I pretty much choose this book as my number one every single fall, without fail. It is the one book from all of these anticipated that I always read, I always buy, I always devour it as soon as I get it. I love this publisher, Pushkin Vertigo. I love this author, Seishi Yokomizo. I love this series. And I'm always bummed at how long it takes them to come out. It's every fall. And like I could perish before they're all published, man. Maybe speed it up a little bit, but I am always thankful for these. Again, like Virginia, this is a little bit of a cheat in that this book originally came out in 1957, but has come into another recent publication in English, translated by Bryan Karetnyk. Bryan Karetnyk, coming out with these like super pulpy covers that look really nice on my bookshelf because they're all the same size and the same font. And yes, Virginia, I have all of them, starting with one and moving forward. So this is, of course, the latest book in the Detective Kosuke Kindachi series, that I have been waiting for a very long time. It is the Little Sparrow Murders. Again, I talk about this all the time. It is kind of like a golden age mystery series. You are in the hands of a true master of the genre. So our delightful, scruffy detective, Kosuke Kindachi, is solving another mystery when his old friend invites him to the remote mountain village of Onikobe, which is the site of a 20-year-old unsolved murder case. But no sooner than he arrives, than new murders start happening. Again, why would you invite this guy anywhere? It's like if you get an invitation to like a gala and you're like, oh, who else is coming? You're like, oh, like John Dickinson Carr is coming, Salman Rushdie is coming, Jessica Fletcher's coming. You're like, oh, actually, I'm going to be quite ill. I'm going to have to pass. The same thing. If you see this like bird's hair nest guy strolling into village with kind of like shaggy looking clothes, being like, I'm a detective, like just take your annual leave and get as far away from him as possible. So yeah, he shows up, dead bodies start piling up. So they're discovered in like strangely bizarre poses, and it soon becomes clear that the victims are being killed using methods that eerily echo the lyrics of an old local children's song. Dun dun dun. People got time on their hands. So as he starts to investigate, he soon discovers that he must untangle the history of the village, the feuding families, and get to the truth. So this is the sixth in the series that has been published by Pushkin Vertigo. Um, the main detective is one of Japan's best loved and most famous fictional sleuths, and Seishi Yokomizo is one of their Japan's greatest crime writers. He's has sold, and this is truly astonishing, 55 million copies just in Japan. It's a lot. It's a lot of books. That's a lot of books. And so I am very, 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 very much looking forward to this. Again, as I've mentioned before on this podcast, as soon as you open this books, you can just relax. You are in the hands of a true master, of someone who really knows what he's doing. You're not going to leave unsatisfied. You're not going to feel as if your time was wasted. You're not going to look at the locked room mystery and go, "Well, that's stupid. What do you mean? What do you mean there was a secret third door that you just didn't mention or put on your stupid maps?" It's all there. It's all there in front of you. You just have to enjoy the ride. So, I do keep some traditions, and this is my yearly fall tradition, which is enjoying the new Seishi Yokomizo.
I was waiting for that to show up. I'm like,
Yeah,
is Corene not going to talk about that? Like, what's
of
happening?
course I
But yeah, I know, of course, you're.
of course I am.
What am I thinking? Yeah. So, all right. So those are our 10 most anticipated books among many, many others. And next week, we'll hear from Sadie and Emma and see what kind of books they are looking forward to reading. So,
Yeah, the $5 that one of Sadie's is the new Kelly Armstrong.
probably, probably.
I
I feel
feel
like Kelly
pretty
Armstrong
confident.
has a book that comes out every season
That's
almost.
true.
Because as Sadie points out, she writes in so many different genres. So,
Never
hmm.
mind. No betting at work. Oh,
But there's the bingo. There's the bingo sheet. You
yes.
can all, yeah. All right. Okay. All right. We good?
We did it.
We did it. Okay. All right.
Ugh.
Well,
Mm.
thank you everyone for listening. Again, we'll report back maybe on the books that we have read. And then these may show up again, if they fulfill our expectations of them, they might show up again in our last episode, in our
Oh, the
top
Seishi Yokomizo one is
five.
absolutely going to be on my top 5. Don't even worry about it. I've reserved like spot number 4.
All right. Well, now we know. Okay. Perfect. Okay. All right. That makes our annual contest a little easier. If you're gonna
Mm.
just put that one on there, that would be great. We know it is from Corene. Okay, so we will see you all next week. Thank you for listening and have fun reading.
Happy
Bye.
reading. Bye.